Hello, Vision Building Women. I hope you're having a fantastic Sunday. This is Dr. Saundra, and we are starting our very first Dr. Saundra Speaks in 2020. So come on in. While you're coming in, I'm going to go on my phone here and see what it looks like. I'm actually coming to you live from my computer, which I don't often do. Women, I hope you're having a fantastic Sunday. There we go. Turn the volume down there. And sometimes I can see much better, see the comments better on my phone than I can on my computer. So welcome everybody. Happy New Year to those of you who I have not had the opportunity to say Happy New Year to today. Come on in, come on in. I would say hello to everybody, but people are hopping in so quickly that your names are going by a little bit faster than I can see. All right, so come on in, come on in. Some of the names I see, looks like you're coming in from all over, literally. Some of the names I recognize, some of the names I don't recognize. For those of you that are here for your first time, welcome, welcome. My name is Dr. Saundra Wall-Williams, and I am a call to the Office of Teacher, so that's what I do. And I am also a calling and career coach mentor. I am the former Senior Vice President for all 58 community colleges in the state of North Carolina. And because of that particular position for almost 16, well, actually 17 years, because of that position. And I'm also in ministry. I'm an ordained minister, and I do a whole lot of ministry, have my own ministry called Teach. Because of all of those things, I have, I guess you would say, amassed a certain set of skills and competencies that enables me to coach and mentor and train and consult in the area of walking in your calling and moving forward in your career. So I am with you today, and we are going to be talking about how to set boundaries. And this particular, I guess you say, topic came about after having a conversation with one of my clients, one of my individual clients. I don't take on a lot of individual clients because of the amount of time that it takes. And so I don't do that. I usually do like group training or group coaching, that sort of thing. And so, but this particular client was having some serious issues, and she needed something, and asked me if I would work with her. And I said, of course I would. And so it was very, very interesting when she came to me with her struggle. And so I asked her, I'm not going to be giving her name, and because I can't see all the names as they go past, I can't even tell if she's on here. But I did get her permission to be able to share with you tonight some of the things that she was struggling with and how that impacted her, and in terms of setting boundaries. So again, welcome everybody. We're going to go straight into this. One of my boundaries in 2020 is to keep my teaching down to 45 minutes, okay? Somebody hold me to that. Keep my teaching down to 45 minutes. Oh, I see one of my vision coaches on the line tonight. Hello, Della, all the way from Texas. Welcome, welcome. I see some future people future ladies who are going to be in the upcoming Action Plus Results Boot Camp. I see Yolanda's on here. I see some other ladies who are part of other courses that I have taught. So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining in. And I'm going to get straight into the teaching. Oh, one more welcome. I see my longtime high school friend, Lisa White Johnson. She and I were actually born 2 days apart in the hospital together, have literally known each other since birth. And so shout out to you also. So tonight, as I said, we're going to be tackling a topic on how to set boundaries, And the reason that I said I want to tackle this is because the Lord spoke to me back in October about what 2020 should look like for the people who are connected to me, okay? What 2020 should look like for the people who are connected to me. And that is 2020 is going to be a year of action, plus results. Okay. The reason I keep looking in different places is because I've got my computer in front of me and my phone down here. So I'm just trying to make sure that I capture any questions that you all may have. All right. So, but the Lord spoke to me very, very clearly and said that 2020 is going to be a year of action plus results, action plus results. And when you go through this action plus results, then you'll be making an impact wherever it is that, wherever sphere of influence that you have. And so, but the issue that we have is that a lot of women don't take action. Therefore, you don't get the results that you're looking for. Therefore, you don't have the impact in the areas that you want to have impact in. So as I begin to just study and just keep this whole action, excuse me, this whole action plus results in front of me, the Lord showed me that one of the things that we don't do as women, one of the things, very generally as women, one of the things that we don't do as professionals, one of the things that we don't do as, what are the categories? Ministers, teachers, government workers, lawyers, doctors. I mean, I have all those kinds of people that are in my community. But one of the things that we don't do is that we don't set boundaries. And when I realized that part of the issue that does not allow us to take action is the fact that we don't set boundaries, then I actually added that to the Action Plus Results Bootcamp. Now, those of you that have already had the Action Plus Results Bootcamp, if you took it the first time, you get to take it again. They already know this, okay? And because I've added some more content to it. The Action Plus Results Bootcamp actually starts on Thursday with orientation. And it's every Tuesday, Thursday through January 31st. And it is during the day. And I do it during the day because that's when you're fresh. I do it during your lunchtime. And so all the classes are recorded. And we do have some sessions where we have Q&A time where it's live and that sort of thing. But I'm going to be recording it this time. So it's going to be a little bit different. But I've also added some more content. And I'm really excited. I was excited about the last time I taught Action Plus Results Bootcamp, but I'm even more excited this time because I've added the boundaries in here, a whole teaching on how to set boundaries, a whole teaching on understanding your boundaries. And then I've also added a whole section on distractions and hindrances, okay, and understanding those and making sure that you know the difference between those and that sort of thing. So I'm going to be telling you more about the Actions Plus Results Bootcamp at the end, but I wanted you to make sure that you understood that this particular topic tonight, how to set boundaries, actually came from a client. But then after we finished discussing it, I realized, well, the reason she can't move forward is because she's having struggle with boundaries. And when you actually get past your boundaries, then you can actually begin to take action. You begin to get the results that you're looking for, and then you begin to make the impact that you know that God wants you to be able to make. You are actually able to do the things that God wants you to be able to do. So let's get started with the actual topic tonight. So now here's something that I found, and most of you on here, if not all of you, probably have the same situation. Now, for those of you that have never watched me or listened to me before, I always have my notes. I'm always prepared, okay? I always have my notes and everything. I've got a lot of light in here tonight because it's dark, and I have to have a lot of light in here at night. So if you see the light shining and the be amazing, that's because there's a light right over my head to make sure that you all can see me very well. So now, most of you in here, if not all of you, are people who get things done. Okay, you get things done, and when you're a person that gets things done, then people tend to expect a lot from you. People see you as dependable. They see you as faithful. They see you as reliable. They see you as someone who can make things happen. And so what tends to happen is you are always called upon. Now, if that's you, I want you to type a 1 in the comment box. You're that person that people tend to go to when they want to make things happen. You're that person that people come to for advice, okay? You're that person that people say, oh, you know what? I know she's got the answer, so let me give her a call. If that's you, I want you to put a 1 in the comment box if that's you on tonight. So, and the reason I ask you that, and I see people are already putting 1s in the comments. Thank you so much. Thank you. The reason I'm asking you that is because when you're that person, there are times when people ask a lot of you and you get to saying yes too much because you don't have boundaries in place. Okay. So now what I also have found that tends to happen is that people who don't have boundaries in place, their life or your life is filled so much with doing things for so many other people that you tend not to take care of yourself in the different ways that you need to take care of yourself. Now, I'm going to talk about some ways of some areas of boundaries that more than likely you haven't thought about before, but we need to think about these areas. Let me so that you can actually make boundaries happen in your life. Now, I want to tell you off the top here that setting boundaries in your life is biblical. Okay, so I know probably some of you, when you said no to some stuff at church, or you said no to some stuff to some people may have said to you something like, oh, I thought you were a Christian. If you were a Christian, why are you telling me that you can't do this? Well, let me help you. Setting boundaries is biblical. I'm going to give you some scriptures a little bit later on, but I want to tell you that setting boundaries is scriptural. So now let me give you the sort of like the day, a particular day in the life of my client when she had gotten so fed up that she decided, okay, let me reach out to Dr. Saundra and let her coach me through this particular process or this particular struggle that she was having. Okay, so let's just think about, I asked her, and I always ask people that I work with individually because the level of things that they're working on is so great that they have to make sure that they have the time to do it. Now, we practice this in the Action Plus Results Bootcamp. We actually set you up so that you can make sure that you have the time to do what it is that you need to be doing. But this particular client was tracking her time throughout the day. So now, let me give you what happened to her during the day. And this had happened several times over the course of a couple of months. And finally, she got fed up. So let's start about 6 o'clock a.m. She told me she got up. 7:30, she leaves for her job, and she has a very, very demanding job. The kind of job that she works is a very, very demanding job. Okay. Between 5 and 6 p.m., she's leaving work to come home. At 7, she's cooking dinner, or this particular night, she was cooking dinner, and she was actually cooking. At 8:30, now this is where the struggle started. At 8:30, she got a call from a friend who had an issue, who needed some help. So she was on the phone for about 20 minutes. Now, at 8:50 p.m., she began working on the friend's issue. Now at 9:25, and this particular client, is also in school. Okay, she's also in school. She's taking a class for something that is ministry focused. It's a business class, but she's going to be using the content for ministry. So it's a class that she's actually taking at a university, and she's going to be getting a grade for it. So at 9:25, after she's talked to the friend, working on the friend's issue, she told me she didn't finish the friend's issue, but she was working on it. But at 9:25, she finally started to sit down and work on her schoolwork. Okay. At 10:05, she gets a phone call from church about an ushers meeting. All right. She gets a phone call from church about an ushers meeting. All right. And so then that phone call from church lasted about 30 minutes. Okay. Now, here it is. Remember that she started her schoolwork about 9:25. That's what she was supposed to be working on that particular night. She gets all these phone calls. She starts doing this stuff for other people. At 10:45, she said, Dr. Saundra, I was getting sleepy and I wasn't any good. Couldn't hardly do my schoolwork, couldn't hardly do the work I was supposed to be doing for other people. And then so she just decides at 11:10 to call it a night and just go to sleep and call it a night, get up early the next morning. Well, what she saw happening is this sort of thing was happening all the time. If it wasn't a friend that was calling her that needed some assistance, then it was one of her children who are all grown. So she's got one in college, but the other ones are grown. If it wasn't her the job, if it wasn't the church or her children, it was having to stay at the job because she manages people, and then she had to make sure things were correct in the management of those people. But regardless of what it was, things were always going on that was hindering her from taking the action that she needed to take, from doing the thing that she knew that God wanted her to be doing at this particular time. And that is taking this course so that she could expand the ministry that God has for her. And so bottom line is, she says, Dr. Saundra, I hear you talking all the time about being in alignment with your divine assignment. Well, I can't do that if I keep taking on all of the problems, if I keep taking on all the issues, if I keep trying to fix everybody's issue that comes to me. Okay, so bottom line, this client had gotten fed up. So I asked her, I said, well, tell me, what is it that you want to be doing? And like many of you, she wants to be able to spend more time with God. She wanted some more me time. Okay, she loves to read, and I always advocate finding time for those things that you love to do. So she loves to read fiction and nonfiction. Okay. All right, so she wanted to have about 30 minutes a day, which doesn't sound like a long time, but she wanted to have 30 minutes a day where she could just sit and read and not have any interruptions, just sit and read. Okay, so she was literally feeling angry because she could not do the things excuse me, she could not do the things that she wanted to do. Lisa says, pretty typical day for me. Okay, and it's not good. Yeah, I used to have those days until I started setting some boundaries. That's why I wanted to bring this to you tonight. My client pretty much hit the nail on the head when she began going through this. But when she was getting angry, and she was getting angry at people, she was getting frustrated because she didn't have the kind of time that she wanted to have to be able to do what she knew that God had given her to do in this season. And that was take the class, expand the ministry. She knew that. All right. Now, one of the things that I asked her about, I said, so tell me, why is it? What kind of questions, do you have? What kind of things make you feel like you can't set boundaries? So first of all, I said, let me tell you, I don't know what has got me to coughing in here, y'all. I apologize. Let me drink this little bit of Gatorade. Okay. So I asked her the question, what kinds of things, are holding you back? What kinds of things make you feel like that you can't set boundaries? And so then I said, before that, let's talk about what a boundary is. Okay. Now, very simply, if you think about a boundary in the physical, and you know that if something is physical, there's also a spiritual component to it, right? To it also, right? So if you think about it in the physical, you think about the land, your land, there's a part, a line that can be drawn where your land stops and somebody else's land starts. Okay. All right. Where your land stops and somebody else's land starts. So if you were to go downtown and you were to look up the land, then where the bodies of land are, what are the boundaries of a particular piece of property, then it is very, very clear. You can go look it up. You can find it out. I recall an episode of Sanford and Son. Yes, I love Sanford and Son. I recall an episode of Sanford and Son where Fred Sanford, excuse me, wanted to find the boundaries, and it wasn't what he expected it to be. But bottom line is, somebody could come out and literally determine what is that line where my land stops and somebody else's starts. So think about boundaries in the spiritual. Think about boundaries emotionally. Think about boundaries mentally. Basically, a boundary is that line where you end and somebody else begins. That line, whether it's, and we're going to talk about this very briefly tonight, that line where you end and someone else begins. Okay. So my client was at the point where she was ending what it was that she knew that her particular assignment was, which was take the class, expand the ministry. Okay. She was allowing things to interrupt that. But that's because she had no boundaries around the things that she would say yes to and the things that she would say no to. Okay. Now, it's very important that you get this, because if you get this at the beginning of 2020, then you won't have any issues as you go through the rest of the year. Again, like I said, I'm only giving you a little bit here because we only have a certain amount of time. And like I said, I want to be more obedient to the time in 2020 than I have been in 2019, because y'all know I can get long-winded, right? You know that. So anyway, especially when I teach, because I love teaching. All right. So one of the things that she found is that with boundaries, she had none. If the phone rang, she needed to answer it. If someone called her name, she needed to respond. If someone sent her a text, then she needed to respond to the text. Okay. If somebody sent her an email, then regardless of what the email was, she needed to respond to the email. And some of you may feel that way. Some of you may still feel that way. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with feeling that way. There's nothing wrong with feeling that way. But what you have to be able to do is, if you feel that you've got to respond to everything, then you've got to put some boundaries around that. Otherwise, you are going to get overwhelmed. You're going to be frustrated. You are not going to be able to complete assignments. You won't be in alignment with your divine assignment. You're going to be tired. And I'll tell you, even in my research on looking at this particular topic, I found out that there are some things that can actually cause other kinds of issues in you, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, if you don't have boundaries set. So now, keep in mind, my client, all this stuff is going on. She's gotten angry. She can't do what she wants to do. She knows that there's stuff that God has called her to do. She can't do it. All right. So when I asked her, I said, so what are some things that, that you question as to why you don't set the boundaries? She responded to me like, things like, well, if I set boundaries, will people still feel like I love them? Okay. If I set boundaries, what if somebody gets their feelings hurt because of the boundary I set? And these are some legitimate questions that, if you've ever thought about setting boundaries, then you've experienced these kind of questions. She says, why do I have to feel guilty? Why am I feeling guilty because I've set a boundary as to when I'm going to start doing things for other people? Okay. Why is that boundary there? And then finally she said, Dr. Saundra, sometimes I just feel selfish. I just plain old feel selfish if I set a boundary around something. And I will tell you, all of those questions, all of those feelings are legitimate feelings. And I'm not going to say there's nothing wrong with them, because they're your feelings. And so if they're your feelings, they're your feelings. But what I want you to understand is, if you are going to move forward with your divine assignment, if you're going to be in alignment with what God has called you to do, then you are going to have to set some boundaries around you. And I'm going to tell you the areas where you have to set boundaries. I'm going to tell you those when we get to the end. All right. But I want you to make sure that you know that, because if you don't have boundaries, let me tell you, if you don't have boundaries, then you're going to struggle. Let me say that again. If you don't have boundaries, then you will struggle. Okay. So, but what I also found was that women in general, and especially those of us that are in the service industry, those of us that are coaches, that are mentors, and more than likely every single one of you on here mentors someone in some form or fashion. Okay. I mentor professionally. I'm in the corporate world. I mentor women professionally. Okay. Corporations pay me to come in and be mentors to certain women, or certain groups of women. All right. From what I do, I'm a coach. So I also help women in terms of coaching through my courses to help you move forward in your calling and your career. Some of my courses, like the Actions Plus Results Bootcamp, that's a course, but it also has a coaching component to it. I also do training in terms of leadership. I'm also a speaker. I'm an author. I do a lot of speaking throughout the year. And so I meet women all over the world. And what I found was that people that are in the service industry, people draw on you a lot. And those of you that are in ministry, or those of you that may have a position in your job that is a leadership position, people draw on you all the time. And you know that, but you struggle to set limits on what you will allow people to do. You struggle to put limits on your yeses, and you struggle to put limits on your nos. All right. And that's no, N-O. Okay. You struggle to put limits on it. So then you might ask yourself, why do I struggle to set boundaries? Well, the same struggle that my client had. You struggle to set boundaries because you don't want people to think you're selfish. You don't want people to think that you're not a Christian. You don't want people to think that you are you don't want to feel guilty. You don't want people to think that you don't love them. Well, let me tell you something. When you now, if you're writing, you need to write this one down. Okay. When you set boundaries, when you set boundaries from what you will allow people, remember, boundaries are where you end and others begin. Okay. Meaning that you stop doing things for you and now you've hopped over here doing things for other people. When you set those boundaries of what you're going to do, then you will see yourself being able to do the things that God has said for you to do, whether those things are in your calling, whether those things are in your career. Some of you can't move forward in your career because of the fact that you're always helping someone on the job. Send that person to training. Okay. If you're in charge of someone and they can't do their job. I mean, I had this issue so much. Being a senior vice president, and I had a lot of people that worked in my division, and there were people at the colleges, and their bosses would come to me and say, Dr. Saundra, you know what? They call me Dr. Williams then. Dr. Williams, I've got this issue of this person who can't do their job. What do I need to do? Well, we'd work out a performance kind of plan for them. But at the bottom line, if they couldn't cut it, then either, you're going to help them find something else, or you're going to have to let them go. All right. And so that happens more often than not. And for some reason, it's easy for us to do it in our professional lives, but we make it difficult in our personal life. And your personal life, remember, you're going to carry to the job with you whatever is going on with you personally. Okay, you're going to carry that to the job with you. All right. For those of you that are in ministry or operating in your calling, or you're working in a nonprofit or whatever it is, you still have the same issues. People call you from church and say, I need you to do this. I want you to do that. And for whatever reason, you don't get it. You feel like you've got to do it. And that if you don't do it, that you're going to be frowned upon. Okay. And I see it so much. I see people getting angry because they're like, why can't somebody else do this? Why am I always being called upon? And it's not the fact that you may always be the person being called upon, but you have a choice as to whether or not you're going to do what they've asked you to do. And the only way that you can make that choice happen is that you set some boundaries around you. Okay. You set some boundaries around you. Well, here's something else I found in my research, that when you don't have boundaries in place, that you get psychological symptoms. Now, this right here just floored me right here. That you get psychological symptoms such as depression, anxiety disorders, eating disorders, addictions, impulsive disorders, guilt problems, shame issues, panic disorders, and you will struggle, or you can struggle in your marital or other relationships. You can have struggles there when you don't have boundaries in place. Come on, y'all. Y'all need to get this right here. And the reason that this is so important is because some of you keep wondering why you're struggling in certain areas. It's because you don't have boundaries in place. It's because you don't have in place what causes you to say yes to something and what causes you to say no without feeling guilty, without others thinking you're selfish. Well, here's the thing. Let me jump back to that for a second. You can't help how other people feel. Okay. So don't try to make someone feel or someone say, well, I'm feeling guilty, or I don't want them to feel guilty. You can't control that. You can't control whether somebody feels guilty or not. What you can control is yourself. All right. And so as we think about these things, and as I work with my clients, and as I teach courses, and as I work with corporate women, and just begin to see how this impacts them and how it can hurt so bad that some women just go into a state of depression, don't even realize you're depressed. It brings stress on you. It brings stress on you. And that's the one that I experienced personally. I had so much going on, all right, and I could handle it, but my body couldn't. I could handle it, but my body couldn't. And then some things happened, and I didn't go get something looked at. And then when I got to the doctor, the neurology doctor, he said, you have so much inflammation up here in your body. There's so much inflammation, and we've got to get rid of it quickly. So I literally had to have steroid infusions. Okay. Now, if you've ever had a steroid infusion, that means you're getting an IV and you're getting steroids pumped into you in IV. I'm not talking about the pill, the 7-day pill pack. I'm talking about something much more radical than the seven-day pill pack. Okay. I'm talking about steroid infusions. Now, I feel much better, but those hours that I had to sit there and get the IV, the steroids pumped into me, made me think a lot. Okay. And I just began to thinking, like I told someone, and I may have told you all before, I literally had my be still and know that I am God moment. I really experienced that. I really experienced that scripture. And what it helped me to do is I've got to set some more boundaries around what I do. I thought I already had boundaries, but then what I began to realize is that I've got to set even more. And then that's what we're going to end with on tonight. Okay. So how do you get to the root of your problem, and how do you set the boundaries? I'm going to give you two things in terms of setting boundaries. There's a whole lot of them. We're going to be going over these in the Actions Plus Results Bootcamp. Now, if you're interested in signing up for that, then you'll want to go to bit.ly/AR Bootcamp 2020 and go ahead and enroll today. The class starts on the 9th. And so I'm excited about this class because the group that took the class, they did it between Christmas. No, they did it between Thanksgiving and Christmas. That's what they did. They did it between Thanksgiving and Christmas, which usually you don't think is a good time to offer a class. But these ladies were on the ball. You'll see some of their testimonials inside that particular website. But they were on the ball because they never experienced what I showed them. You know, like I said, my years of being a senior vice president, my years of being in ministry, I have a certain set of skills that can help people, especially women, be able to move forward. Most of the things that I teach and that I give people, especially in my classes, they've never seen before. But when they start putting it into action in their own lives, then they start seeing results. They start making an impact. Now, here are some areas, and if you're writing, I want you to write these down. Here's some areas that you need to set boundaries in. You need to set emotional boundaries, physical boundaries, mental boundaries, social boundaries, spiritual boundaries, practical boundaries, and then professional boundaries. Okay, you need to set boundaries in all of those areas: emotional, physical, mental, social, spiritual, practical, and professional. You need to set boundaries in all those areas, because if you don't, sometimes you think, well, I just need to set one boundary. You may have a certain kind of boundary that works emotionally, but you'll need something different spiritually. Okay, you need to recognize this. This is what we're going to be going over in the Action Plus Results Bootcamp, because you can't take action on something if you don't have some boundaries around certain areas of your life. If you haven't thought about what spiritual boundaries do I need to set in my life, what mental, what social boundaries do I need to set in my life? Okay, what kinds of professional boundaries do I need to set? If you haven't thought about those things, then when it comes time to saying yes or saying no, you're going to say yes too much and no not often enough. Okay, been there, done that. I got a bag of chips, so I know what I'm talking about. Okay, so now I want you to write this scripture down. Proverbs 4:23. Proverbs 4:23. And this particular scripture speaks on guarding your heart. It speaks on guarding your heart. And here's the thing I want you to remember. When we talked about that being or setting boundaries is biblical, you need to start guarding those things that are you, those things that define who you are. what you believe, your values. You need to start guarding those things. And then you need to be aware of those things that are not you, those things that you don't want in your world, those things that, you wouldn't have anything to do with if somebody paid you. Okay. You need to be aware of those, because if you know the things that are you and you guard those things in your heart, if you know the fact that you believe a certain way, if you know the fact that you have to spend time with your children, if you know the fact that part of your life has to be spending time with your spouse, spend quality, intimate time with the Lord in prayer and in fasting, and reading your Bible and meditating on his word. If part of you is having time for you, okay, having time for the things that you enjoy, you need to know what those things are. You need to be able to define what those things are. And then you need to guard them, because they're part of your heart. They're part of who you are. And in Proverbs 4:23, it says literally to guard those things of the heart. Okay, guard those things of the heart. And then you need to be aware of those things that are not you, the things that you will not take, the things that you will not do. You need to know those things, because if you don't know them on both sides of the spectrum, the things that are you and the things that are not you, if you don't know them, then again, what's going to happen is you're going to say yes to some things that you should say no to. All right, let's keep moving. All right, now, I found that there are reasons, again, in talking to several women now, after I had this conversation with my client and talking to several women, I'm like, let me understand, why is it that we don't set boundaries? Number one reason, okay, hold on. Number one reason why we don't set boundaries is fear. F-E-A-R. Fear. Fear keeps us from so much, y'all. Now, I know that this isn't like my normal teaching. Usually I'm teaching Bible, scripture, and that's wonderful. But sometimes I've got to come to you with some life-changing stuff. Now, the word is life-changing, of course. But sometimes I've got to come to you with some stuff that you're struggling with, that the word is the answer to. But we've got to put it in such a perspective, put the word such that you can apply it. This is application of the word. What I'm teaching you tonight is application of guarding your heart. And it's much more than that. There are many more scriptures. I can't give them all to you just because of the time we have left. If you're in the Action Plus Results Bootcamp, you're going to get this. So make sure that, and I'll put the actual link up there. I think it's going up around 10 o'clock or so. You'll see it in the group. But that when you fear, you have fear, for example, you have fear of hurting other people's feelings. You have fear of abandonment or separateness. People are going to walk away or walk out of your life if you start putting boundaries around yourself. You have fear. Some of you have fear that if you have boundaries, that you're going to be totally dependent on somebody else. Some of you have fear of somebody else being angry with you. Okay. So you don't set boundaries. Some of you are fearful of punishment, of being ashamed, of being seen as non-Christian, or you're bad, or you're selfish. Some of you don't set boundaries because you don't want people to see, or you don't want people to think you're unspiritual, okay, because you don't set boundaries. And sometimes you don't set boundaries just because you don't want to take the criticism that other people may say about you. You don't want to take the criticism that other people may say about you. And I'll tell you, I've dealt with all of that. Once I start setting boundaries, I experienced this a while back, and I've definitely been experiencing it over the past couple of months. Once I started increasing, I shouldn't say increasing my boundaries. Once my boundaries became more mature, let's put it that way. Once my boundaries became more mature, I've seen some things begin to happen. I've seen some people begin to say some things. I mean, for example, one of the things that I did as one of my boundaries is that my classes now I teach during the day. Okay. Because I'm tired at night. I can't give you 100% at 7 to 8 o'clock at night. Okay. I do this on Sundays because I only do it once a week. Okay. But if I'm teaching, 4 nights a week, and I've got 4 nights of teaching at 7 o'clock, you can't get 100% from that. I can't give you 100%. And then you can't receive because you're tired. You've been working all day. Okay. So that's why I moved my classes to 12 to 1:30. Classes are 12 to 1:30. And you know what? I got more percentage participation during that time than I did at nighttime. Which says to me, okay, that's a boundary I created. I'm thinking everybody wants to do something at night. And then I realized that people would rather do it, have it during the day, so that if they either live during the day, they get it live, or they can come home at night and watch the replay. Okay, if they have to do that. So what I'm trying to say is sometimes the thing that we have been fearing that we don't set a boundary because of the thing that we've been fearing, it's really the thing that's holding you back from moving forward with what God wants you to do. Y'all have got to get this tonight. I promise you, I'm not going to get in a preaching mode tonight. I'm going to stay teaching, but this is so near and dear to my heart because like I said, thank you, Mona. Your boundaries must become more mature. Like I said, when my boundaries began to mature, things started to change. I started being in complete alignment with my God-given assignments. I started looking at things differently. I started doing things differently. And when you do that, you won't have the struggles that you have right now. All right. So now I'm going to give you 2 things right now that you can do right now that you need to do to create some boundaries. All right. 2 things you need to do to create some boundaries. Now, like I said, I can't go over everything. I can't go over every step because I'm trying to keep within a certain time frame. And like I said, it's 9 o'clock. All right. On Sundays is a long day for me. All right. So I've had a long day, but I'm committed to doing this teaching. So I rest up before I come and teach to you. I used to didn't do that. That's another boundary, y'all. It's another boundary. I would go the whole day and do all the things that I have to do, go to church, do all the things between church and here, and I wouldn't stop. And then I get here and I am just like, I'm teaching, but because I love teaching, it comes across with the power and the authority that it's supposed to. But then at 10 o'clock, I'm still seeing myself with other things to do and I'm whipped. Okay. So you know what now I do? One of my boundaries is Sunday afternoon, REST, rest. Sunday afternoon rest. Okay. Now that Sunday afternoon rest, I could be laying on the couch. I could be laying in my bed. I could be doing whatever, but I am resting. I'm resting my mind. I'm resting my body so that I can be prepared to come to you at 9 o'clock. Okay. So again, the more mature your boundaries become, the more results, the more action you'll take, the more results you'll see, the more impact that you'll make, the more you will be in alignment with your divine assignment. Y'all have got to get this. Your 2020 will be different if you start beginning to see that you've got to set boundaries. So how do you do it? How do I create boundaries? Number 1, I'm only going to give you 2 things tonight. Okay. Number 1, you must identify your boundary conflicts. You must identify your boundary conflicts. And what's a boundary conflict? Your boundary conflicts are those areas where you need to establish boundaries. Now, let me step on your toes right here. Where do you need to set boundaries? Where do you need to establish boundaries? Your family, your friends, your spouse, your children, your work, your ministry, church, yourself, with God. Oh, wait a minute, Dr. Saundra. How do I set boundaries with God? Okay. God created boundaries, so he expects you to set them. Okay. That's the first thing. We talk more about that in the boot camp. I can't go through everything here because of the time, but there's some boundaries that you have to do there also. Okay. Some boundaries with yourself. Big time. Set digital boundaries, okay? Set digital boundaries with texting, with social media, with the phone, Instagram. First of all, you have to say to yourself, where do I need to set boundaries? And y'all, be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself. Where do I need to set boundaries? Do you need to set boundaries with your family? Okay? Do you need to set boundaries with your family? Okay, like my family knows not to call me between 9 and 10 on Sunday evenings. Okay, because some of them are here. Okay, some of them are actually online with me. Okay, and my family knows that. All right, my family knows that I get my rest on Sunday afternoon. Okay, my family knows that although I work for myself and then I'm in my home office a lot, that I'm working, so they don't call me and ask me to run and do errands and do these little things for them. And if they do, you know what? I can choose to say yes, or I can choose to say no. Okay, my family knows. For me right now, one of my boundaries is going to all my son's basketball games. Or let me back up a second. My church knows. Okay, my church knows that I go to all my son's games. Okay, and for me not to be at a game and to be doing something else, that means that that responsibility for doing that thing had to be mine. As a matter of fact, let's go back to number 2. Let's take that. Let's go to number 2. So number 1 is you must identify your boundary conflicts. Where do you need to establish boundaries? And y'all, let me help you. You better be honest with yourself right here. You've got to be honest with yourself, because if you don't think that you need to set boundaries somewhere, then you probably do. Okay? If you don't think that you need to set boundaries in a particular place, then more than likely you do. Okay? Now, number 2. Now, here's number 2 is where the pain point always comes in. Once you determine where your boundary conflicts, whether your boundary conflicts, I said family, friends, children, work, ministry, the church, digital, yourself. Okay. When you determine where you need to establish boundaries, then when something happens, you need to ask yourself, who needs to take ownership of this task, of this problem, of this issue? Who needs to take ownership of it? Because here's the thing you need to understand. Being involved and taking ownership are 2 different things. Okay? Being involved and taking ownership are 2 different things. And that tends to be a pain point with many people. Okay? Some of you are sending me some things in Messenger, and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's really, some of y'all are really hitting it tonight. Okay, you already started with I just saw something come across. These are the places I need to establish boundaries. Okay, so and you need to determine who needs to take ownership of this. Do I need to take ownership of this? Let's go back to my client. Okay, go back to my client when she got the call about the ushers. Okay, at the church. When we talked about what the call was about, that was not, like we say in Rockingham, bit more her problem. That was not her issue. It was not her problem. But the person on the other end of the phone was like, I need some help. Why don't you? And immediately she went into, okay, I'll handle it. But it was not her problem. It was not her problem. Okay. But she took ownership of it. What happened? The boundary wasn't set. She didn't have boundaries. And when there was no boundaries, then what happens is now she's doing something made her angry because she didn't get to spend the time that she wanted to spend on her schoolwork. And then she had to rush and try to get some schoolwork done at the end of the week. And you know how it is when we're trying to rush and get things done. Okay. So you got to ask yourself, who needs to take ownership of what it is that's going on? And let me help y'all. It's not you all the time. It's not you all the time. It is the world will keep revolving around the sun. Is that right? Yeah, the earth revolves around the sun. The earth will continue to revolve around the sun if you say no. Okay? The world is not going to drop, or the earth is not going to drop. Okay? And everybody go into a panic mode because you say no. All right? Now you do have to ask yourself, if I'm to take ownership, if it's something that I have to take ownership of, then of course you say yes. But if it's not something that you need to take ownership of, then it's a no. All right, then it's a no, or it's a not now, or it's a let's see if there's a different way we can get this done where I'm not involved. Okay, or something. But ladies, you've got to understand this. You can't go into 2020 doing everything for everybody and thinking you're going to be in alignment with your divine assignment, because I guarantee you, if I went down this road and started calling the roll of everybody that is actually on this particular live on tonight, if I went through here and started calling the roll and started calling you out by name, and then my question to you as I called your name, did you meet everything that you were going to do in 2019? I almost guarantee you 99% of you would say, no, I did not. You would say, Dr. Saundra, no, I did not. I did not get everything done that I wanted to get done in 2019 because of I didn't have boundaries set, because of the hindrances and distractions that came about, because I didn't have a plan, because I didn't know what to do, because I wasn't in the right community. We could go on and on and on, because I didn't have clarity, because I didn't know how to set my priorities straight. I didn't know how to do all that, or I didn't do it. You know, one of the things, and I keep talking about the Action Plus Results Bootcamp because I've taught many classes, but the Action Plus Results Bootcamp, it has become my favorite because of the outcomes that I see, because of the things that the women tell me that they have gotten from this, or being in that particular Action Plus Results Bootcamp, actually being in there. So if you need to take ownership of something, then yes, you take the ownership. But if it's not you, then don't take it. Say no. Or either, and here's the thing, there's a difference in taking ownership and delegation. Because see, if you delegate, that means you took ownership, but now you're giving it to somebody else. When you don't take ownership, that means it's not you that needs to be involved with this. That person needs to be talking to somebody else. Okay, or somebody else needs to be helping that person through that issue. Okay, there are times when people want to talk to me about issues and things like that, and I tell them I'm not the person to talk to. I may not, you know, I know when I'm the right person that someone needs to talk to, and I know when I'm not. Right? I know how to stay in my lane. I've learned that. I've learned that there are some things that I just know that I'm a participant in. There are some things that I don't do at all. Okay. And there's other things that it's my responsibility and I have to take ownership and I have to do the work. Okay. I know those. You need to understand those too, because when you do that, and then those are all surrounding my values, the things that I value about me. One of the things, again, I keep going back to the Action Plus Results Bootcamp because we do so much in there, and it's a boot camp, so it's intense. Okay. And we move quickly, but we get it done so that you can go ahead and start taking action, getting results, and making the impact that you want to see. But here's the thing, let me tell you, that being able to like take the step one, and remember, step one was identifying your boundary conflicts. Step two was determining if you need to take ownership. Well, let me tell you some things that I got over, when I began to do those two steps right here. Okay. I got over people saying to me, how can you say no after all I've done for you? Most of the time, after all I've done for you, it's not that much. But some people will say to me, how can you say no after all I've done to you? Somebody said to me once, you know, if you really, really care about me, if you really, really want to be the minister that you say you are, then you'll make this phone call for me. I'm not making a phone call for you. No. My boundaries, y'all. My boundaries. Okay. Someone said to me once that, you know, if I had it, I'd give it to you. This was a money thing. And my husband and I have strict boundaries around money. Okay, very strict boundaries around money. Okay, and then someone said, if I had it, I'd give it to you. Well, here's the thing. You couldn't give it to me because you don't have it. Because if you had it, you wouldn't be asking me for it. Okay, you got to remember, y'all, boundaries are critical. Okay, and these are things that people have said, things I've experienced. All right. Someone said to me, this is a person who was not a Christian that I would not do something with. And they said, how can you call yourself a Christian? Come on, y'all. Come on. But it was okay. And then someone asked me to do something and I said a flat no. And I don't explain myself. I just say no. And no is a complete sentence. I know that you've heard me that. And no is one of the biggest boundaries that you can set. But no is the outcome of a boundary. You got to set some other you got to do some other things before you say no. Okay, you got to be able to justify to yourself why you're saying no. You don't have to justify it to somebody else, but you've got to justify it to yourself why you're saying no. Okay. And someone said to me once, you're not being submissive to the Holy Spirit because you're saying no. Now that one kind of got me. Okay. That one got me. You know, you're not being submissive to the Holy Spirit because I said no. I kind of left it alone. You know, I said, you know, I don't have time to argue with you. I'm not going to argue with you. The answer is still no. All right. So, tonight we talked about setting boundaries. And ladies, let me tell you, if you don't set boundaries now, because your work is only going to intensify, you're only going to get more things that people are going to call upon you to do. Okay. It's just going to get more and more because you're doing more. People trust you. They want you to do more. But if you don't set boundaries around that, if you don't set some limits, then when hindrances and distractions come, you're not going to be able to handle them. You won't be able to handle them. I'm just going to be frank and honest with you. Been there, done that, got my bag of chips, got my t-shirt, got all the stuff that goes with it. Totally understand it. Okay. So this whole thing of setting boundaries, I really want you, as you go into the remainder of, as you go into next week, be thinking about your own boundaries. Be thinking about your own boundaries and how you need to set them. Okay. Like I said, if you are, one of the things I wanted to tell you is that some people say, well, I can't say no. Well, you know what? Start with some baby no's. Some baby no's. If you can't say no to big things, then say no to little bitty things. And believe me, your no will get more mature also. Your no will get more mature. And I'm not telling you to say no to everything. I'm just saying that if you're going to be in alignment with your divine assignment, if you're going to do the assignment that God has for you, like I told you, I've sort of stopped setting goals. I'm making sure now that I'm on assignment or what God has called me to do. I make sure that I am on assignment. I'm in alignment with what God has had me to do. And I make sure that my mission, my vision, my actions, and everything else are in alignment with that. And that's what we teach in the Action Plus Results Bootcamp. Okay. So one of the things that we also teach in there, and that you do, I teach it, but you do it. Okay. Is defining your values. Because if you don't know what your values are, then again, you can't set boundaries. You can't set boundaries. So I want you, as you go into this week, to make sure that you begin to define and determine, what are your boundary conflicts, and then ask yourself, is this my responsibility? Okay. Am I the one that is supposed to take ownership of this thing that is just being asked of me, or this project, or whatever it is? Am I supposed to take ownership of it? Because when you have certain things in place, when you have the boundaries in place, then you can answer that second question just like that. Doesn't matter if it's coming from family, from friends, from children, whoever. If you've got your boundaries, if you've got that in place, then you can answer it just like that. Okay. So I hope this has been helpful for you. In terms of setting boundaries, I know that some of you are ready for 2020. For those of you that are already in the Action Plus Results Bootcamp, thank you so much. I only have 7 slots left because I have to limit it because of the way the class is structured. I have to limit it to the number of people that are in it. There are only 7 slots left. If you feel and God is leading you to be in there, if you're ready to be in alignment with your divine assignment, then let me tell you, go ahead and make the investment. It's only $197. Make the investment, get in there, and believe me, the way you take action will be different. The way the results that you've been looking for, you'll see how you could actually make this happen. And that's what we did the first one. I've added more content to it. So I'm excited about teaching it. We start with orientation on Thursday. It's going to be great. Don't miss it. Don't miss it. Okay. So again, thank everybody for joining me on tonight. Thank you so much. I think Mona was scribing. Mona, you did some great work in scribing on tonight. Thank every one of you for being here on tonight. And I hope to see you soon in the Action Plus Results Bootcamp. Look, tell your friends. Make sure they watch this replay. Okay, tell your friends to get in this group. Make sure they watch this replay, because I'm telling you, 2020, if you're connected to me, it's all about action plus results. I'm not doing this little tiptoe through the tulip thing anymore, because we've got work to do, ladies. We've got divine assignment. We need to be in alignment with it so we can take action, get the results, make the impact that God wants us to make. All right. Y'all have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you soon, or see you this week in the group. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.